When you're sound asleep in the middle of the night, it's impossible to know what's going on in the world around you. Nearly a decade ago, a woman managed to record the sound of an unidentified voice just a few feet away from her bed. Today, we look into the unsettling story behind the sleep as android incident. This is Red Web. Welcome back to Red Web, the show about mysteries, the unsolved, true crime conspiracies, all sorts of things. Today we're diving back into our bread and butter internet mysteries. They offer so much to unsettle the mind. I'm your host, Trevor Collins, and with me, with his gut instinct and his psychic abilities, Alfredo Diaz.
I like this psychic thread you got going on here.
What?
As if I'm some kind of Charles Xavier for the task force.
What if I told you I didn't say that out loud? You read that from my mind.
That's kind of terrifying.
Oh,
I feel like you can kind of low key sue if you had some way to prove it, like sue the app company.
I don't know if you could.
Could you? If it's like some weird
wild
kind of demonic thing that's coming through the app, like I don't know.
You think they planted it? Like the app is like, hey, let's start an ARG. Let's have creepy people talking in these night recordings.
Right. I think one of the crazy things is that like they were having conversations with with that and like my kind of initial like if this was supposed to be like what's the grounded answer here? I don't know. I feel like Bluetooth is a very easy thing to hack and like
that's true.
Work your way into. So I don't know. Like I feel like there's some kind of like someone locally is messing with the audio via I don't know Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, etc.
Interesting. All right. I'm excited to explore that one once we've covered the story. But yes, there are some really interesting theories that I think in some ways help settle this and in other ways make this worse, more terrifying, because this one is deeply unsettling. I don't know if you've ever used one of these apps before, but they essentially track the sounds of your snores and all of that sort of stuff. And we'll get into all of that. But to wake up and hear that something went on in your bedroom, perhaps even with you, oh my God. Oh, yeah, that's so violating.
You feel violated and you know you're vulnerable because you're asleep.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't know. It's kind of, even as an adult, sometimes if like I would watch a horror movie and, you know, I'm up late at night, I could, my mind can spiral.
Oh, yes.
Even at my age. So I'm just like, I don't know, man. Like I
become primal in the dark. I'm
like,
no heights. No long dark hallways, none of that. None where my old like primordial brain can't handle the unknown,
Yeah. I feel like I'd be unsettled for a while.
Oh yeah. Well, interestingly enough, I'm gonna really hook you all in. We have a recording from this night. We have the exact recording from the woman's night as she woke up and what she listened to. So I will play that for you in the podcast. Fredo, we have it for you as well. So that way you can hear it when the time comes. But without further ado, let's dive into the origin, the story of this sleep app recording. On December 30th, 2013, a mother named Jenny and her 3-year-old son were fast asleep using an app to record their sleep behavior. This particular app was called Sleep as Android. Jenny began using this app in October of 2013 so she could better monitor her sleep and make improvements. This app is one that monitors your sleep patterns, customizes alarm systems, in order to essentially wake you up at the optimal point during your sleep cycle. They also record sounds so you can get a better understanding of why you're sleeping deeply or restlessly. In the night, they record things like snoring, coughs, any ruffles in movement, sleep talking, and in this case, a mysterious, strange voice. At 2:04 a.m., maybe 1 hour off the witching hour, maybe the time zones were wrong, on December 30th, the app picked up a series of clicking noises, followed by 2 different voices, one being Jenny's, and it sounded very much like her, but the other one sounded like an unidentified male's voice. We have screenshots, if you're interested, from this app that we'll post to our YouTube channel and our Twitter page. If you want to check that out, both are the user RedWebPod. So we have that recording for you now, Task Force.
What are you doing? Okay. That's
All right, Task Force, now that you listened to it, Fredo, now that you've listened to it, I'm very curious on your instincts. What did you hear before I let you know what the majority of people hear, before I prime you?
I just heard like a woman kind of like talking in their sleep. A lot of like movement and some snapping happening.
Some snapping, yeah. So what's really interesting is I know a lot about this mystery at this point. Obviously, I'm your guided tour through this mystery. And so I'm struggling to hear what I once heard. But when I first heard this, it sounded so distinctly like Jenny addressing whatever the clicking noise is and saying, quote, "What are you doing?" And then you hear a deep male voice quickly responding, "Nothing." Just responding with nothing. And if you listen very closely, right after the word nothing, you hear, "Don't worry about it." And I feel like that phrase trails off very quickly as if it's moving away from the mic. Now, there are a few other muttered sounds leading to the end of the recording, all those clicking noises you were talking about. But then towards the end of the recording, you hear that male voice say something along the lines of, "It's them." So, of course, Jenny, waking up that morning, hearing this, was terrified, mortified even. She's at home, alone with her 3-year-old son, and she is now under the impression that something ended up in her room and was talking to her, and she was responding back. So she took this audio clip from that night and she went to the subreddit called Ghost and made a post titled "Experience Using Sleep as Android App" to see if anyone else online could help identify what or who they thought appeared in this audio clip, or if they could help just debunk this altogether. After Reddit users cleaned up the audio, Jenny and many others kept listening to it over and over, and they couldn't really determine which voice said what, or if the voice at the end said, quote, "It's them," or if it said something else like, "I'm Danny," "I'm dead," "That's them," or most creepy of all, "Hi, Jenny." These are all things that people were starting to hear once they really analyzed the audio.
That's terrifying.
Oh, yeah.
Because now it's like, all right, cool. We actually, you give me something tangible. I finally get something tangible, and it's bad.
You asked for it. Here's the thing. I know you've got your instincts. I want to roll the recording one more time. Now that I've kind of primed you with some of these thoughts, I want to know if you hear anything different.
Okay.
Mom, what are you doing? Okay. Okay.
So hit me with it.
It sounds like she's saying it's them.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Let's put a pin in that, because that's definitely going to come back around. And I'm very curious to... I don't know. There's some interesting theories that I'm excited to dive into, but there's more information that I want to discuss because there's some updates. And I do want to give I want to share Jenny's shout out to Reddit users Blackwater Project and Donnie Marco for cleaning up the audio track and making it a little easier to analyze. But I can't help but hear "It's them" at the very end.
Yeah.
Of course, Jenny herself has no recollection of being awake that night or the events that were caught on the app or saying anything. So she went to Reddit, and in discussion and update about it, she told Reddit users that she sleeps with a fan on. You can hear that certainly in the beginning half of the recording.
That strong like white noise or that strong fan noise.
Exactly. So that fan, she says, is placed on her bedside table, and it periodically clicks and could be what is clicking in the recording. Obviously, those clicks sound very close to the phone, and so that all stands to reason. So I think we can at least park the clicks for now. 4 months subsequently went by, and users began begging Jenny for some updates. And I'm so thankful to Jenny for actually coming back and giving updates, because that's so rare on the internet. Someone drops a curiosity bomb and then disappears, like Iceman with the mysterious town that we talked about a few weeks ago, right?
Yep, just recently.
So in her update post, she stated that she had not found any more voice recordings since that night, but did enhance her security system as well as change her locks so that she could be extra cautious with regards to security and maybe prevent whatever might have gone down that night. While she had not caught the voice again, she did catch the clicking sound a couple more times, which to me indicates that the clicking was in fact the fan, or at least something else in the house. It doesn't resolve the mystery, but it's something else in the house. And it kind of separates it from it being that masculine voice you heard.
Yeah, the fact that you could like repeat the noise, I don't know. I'd feel safe about the clicking noise at that point.
Let me make you feel less safe.
Oh, come on.
Because I've read, and this is just me in my tinfoil hat brain, I've read too many stories and I've seen too many videos of people who have squatters in their attic or who have access from a townhome next door up through the attic into their home. So the clicking, yes, might be detached from the voice she heard, but, and yes, it could definitely be the fan, but a part of me still goes, but man, if we don't know what that clicking sound is exactly, I'm afraid to get rid of it. You know what I mean?
You know what? I didn't even think about that. It could be like a someone living in the walls type of situation, which is also terrifying.
Oh, very. I hate that idea.
Because that's possible.
Oh,
It's something more real.
Oh,
I
very.
feel like it'd be, depending on where you live, or even maybe just wherever, it'd be hot as hell. But possible, doable. Is there like anyone else involved, like in the household? Is it just the mother?
Well, I mean, there is the 3-year-old son.
Is that it?
Yeah, just him. But with regards to this particular clicking, and I'm so grateful for Jenny is like, let's solve this thing kind of mindset, because one time when the clicking was around, it actually woke her up. And so she sat up in order to try to locate where this was going on, try to triangulate a little bit the source of the noise. And so, as one would do, she approached her fan, which she thought, rightfully so, right, was the clicking sounds. That's where it was coming from. But oddly enough, the closer she got to her fan, the more distant sounding the clicks began to be, eventually reaching all the way to the fan, at which point the clicks faded out entirely. So it sounds like the clicks are emanating from the opposite direction of the fan,
Right.
or that something was watching as she moved and like kind of stopped.
It could also be one of those weird things is like, oh, I think the noise is in this direction. Then when you get closer, it sounds like in a different direction. And then when you get closer to the other direction, then it sounds like it.
Yeah, you might be right. I mean, especially when you're tired and it's nighttime and you're a little disoriented because you just woke up and you're like, all right, where's that sound coming from? Is it my fan? Especially if the fan is not clicking constantly, it could have just stopped itself even though you approached
a little bit
it.
of gardening
So
happening.
I don't know. But regardless of our opinions on the matter, she was terrified. So she took Reddit's advice, which was to bravely walk through the house asking for whoever or whatever was making the noise to please stop, as it was scaring her and her son. While that could be a good move, acknowledging a spirit in your place might only empower it. I don't know. But either way, she walked through the house saying, hey, could you please stop? I acknowledge you. Quit it. A few months after these posts were made, Jenny finally updated the people once again to let them know that her and her son were still okay, and that she actually still used the Sleep as Android app strictly for sleep monitoring purposes and does not listen to the recordings anymore. It was just too unsettling, and I get it.
But, oh man, that could be going on. It could be getting worse. And then you're just, I don't know. I would, for the sake of just knowing, I would, but yeah. I get
unless
it.
dishes are flying out of the cupboards, I mean, if it's only getting worse in the realm of recording and you just don't witness it, hey, all right. If everything else is smooth, why expose yourself to that part, you know?
I mean, that's the warning. That's like the buildup. You know what I mean? Every time you see like a horror movie, there's always a buildup. It's never just like, all right, let's just go nuts.
Yeah, but the buildup is paying attention and starting to give it attention, which gives it energy, and you start talking to it, and then you go, wow, that might be a little kid, and you're like, no, that's actually an old demon from the Mesozoic era, right? Haunting your place.
Yeah. Well, you want to hire like an exorcist or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, that's actually a really interesting idea, to cleanse the place at minimum. But on April of 2015, so about a year and a half later, Jenny gave her final update stating this, quote, no longer living at the house where this took place, so no more updates from here on out. Thank God, in all caps. So, liberated from the place, regardless of what went down, we have the one recording. We never heard these voices again, and eventually she just straight up stopped listening to the recordings. So, we have the mystery on our hands. What does your psychic ability and gut instinct tell you?
I don't know. Like I feel like we had so much And then out of fear, we had nothing, which I get it. Like,
yeah.
Send us the tapes and recordings so we can listen to it.
Oh man.
But I mean, if it stopped, then good.
Yeah, right. I mean, I guess that'd be wild if there were recordings that you weren't listening to, and the demon or whatever. The ghost, something. The person in your house starts going, "Please listen to these. I just need attention. All right. I'm just a cry for help, and I'm a ghost that needs attention. I'm friendly. You're just not listening."
I'll tell you what I would have picked, like one or the other, with like in the sense of like hey, I went to Reddit said to speak to possible said entity or whatever, and then not listen to the tapes. I'm like, what? I would have just not try and speak to it at all, right? If I wasn't gonna listen to the tapes. Like if I was trying to talk to it, then I would definitely listen to the tapes, because maybe there's warnings, or I don't know, nothing.
Or like a response,
right?
Like an EMF, right? Like what is that? Electromagnetic phenomenon. EMP. I get them all mixed up. Basically, the one where you record white noise and you hear a voice in it,
EMF.
because it's so quiet.
EMF reader.
EMF, is that it?
Maybe.
Electronic voice phenomenon. So it's EVP. You would capture an EVP on a question mark device. Either way, I feel like she didn't listen to the recording strictly out of a fear mindset, right? That's deeply unsettling and totally violating. But if you're going to hear the noises in the night to the tune of it waking you up, you might want to walk through your house to so she's kind of caught between a rock and a hard place.
Yeah, the situation is terrible. At least she moved with her son, and then from there it just seems like it's not happening.
Right.
Or at least like,
oh man.
They don't know what's happening.
They don't know it could have moved. Like, hey, I moved with you, but you're not listening, so I'm just going to keep making recordings,
Right. I wouldn't be right for a while, to be honest.
I got goosebumps just reading about it.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think it'd be, at this point, like, you left the location, so that's the smart move.
Mm-hmm.
But it could have just been anything. I would not want to be living in that place, I'll tell you that much.
Oh yeah. Especially if you start thinking of course, there's supernatural resolutions here, which are not all comforting. Most of them are actually a little disconcerting, but there's also the reality part of it, which is, was this a break-in? Was somebody in my attic? And if that's possible, but it's kind of no symptoms, like, do you address it? Do you not address it? Do you just live with this stress, this cloud over you of the unknown? And so, to me personally, if it weren't a great expense, I would want to leave at least to a hotel for a minute and call some police and to scrub the place,
That's true.
Just something.
Have them get into the walls.
Yeah, because we have a mother and her son, and that's it. And I can't imagine how they were feeling. But let's talk about some of the theories behind this particular recording. Some of them are very, very interesting, and some of them are a little bit more straightforward, right? Some of them leap to mind, but the first one we're going to talk about is the one I'm most excited about, because I think it could change fundamentally the way you see this, Fredo. So let's talk about it. Some Reddit users believe that the clicking sounds were coming from the woman's son fiddling around with a water bottle. And so the theory states that perhaps all this was her son opening a water bottle, and the recording was just completely misinterpreted due to misinterpreting that stimulus. We're going to play the recording again, but let me give you the primer for this one. In the recording, the clicks sound very similar to a thin plastic water bottle, and Reddit user Drewblix says that they think they heard the son trying to untwist the cap, but struggling. I actually, when listening to this again, heard the opposite, where they were trying to put the cap back on, and you hear that gentle plastic on plastic kind of scraping noise. Drewblix also says they think the dialogue is coming entirely from the mother. So let's re-break down that conversation with that in mind. They go on to state, the mother asks the son, quote, "What are you doing?" "Ah, okay, go on," end quote. And then you can hear the bottle being shut, and then she says, "That's right." Other users have agreed with this theory, saying that it's the best explanation that they've heard of yet, but other users have done extensive analysis on these clips, and they think otherwise. Before we dive into those other theories, with this one in mind, I want you to listen again, and we'll play it once more.
All right.
So, water bottle struggling, crackling, What are you doing? Ah, okay. It's all her voice. Listen under those circumstances.
Well, what are you doing? Okay. That's right.
You know what? It does kind of sound like a water bottle.
Yeah.
It feels like you're like over tightening it, you know, and just clicks because you're over tightening it.
Yeah, you're squeezing that really thin plastic, and
also it kind of feels like a water bottle, like kind of like pop in the beginning. That's like one of the first like little audio cues that breaks the white noise.
And what's interesting to me too is once I was primed to listen to only her voice or only hear her voice, this screwed me up. I can't hear anything but her voice now. When I first listened to this recording, no joke, I heard a deep masculine voice responding to her saying, nothing, don't worry about it. And then that same voice saying, it's them, right? But now I can only hear her voice, and I hear it in the sense of her talking to her son.
Yeah, I only ever heard the voice.
Only the one voice?
Yeah, I've only ever heard the one voice.
Interesting.
And now like that does sound like a water bottle actually. Like really does. That kind of pinpoints it for me.
Oh yeah. This not I mean, yes, I've been primed to hear it this way now. But before I even read what the original lines were supposed to be, I wanted to go in with no biases, and I listened to the recording and I heard that masculine voice. But now, like, I don't know, this makes a lot of sense, and it really helps. It's that Occam's razor. What makes more sense? Was it some sort of break-in? Was it a specter? Was there somebody in your attic, et cetera, et cetera? All very possible and not very difficult to have done. But what's more likely is that her son was interacting with something at night, and in a very, very light state of sleep, she responded. In fact, I think it was, if you look at the screenshots of the app, it was around that time of night, around 2 a.m., that it shows that she entered REM sleep that night. And so if she was if it's hard to say because it's like a zoomed out line graph, but if, for example, her REM didn't start until about then, it is possible that she was sleeping, talking in her sleep, or wasn't fully in that deep immersive sleep just yet. But man, I don't know. I love how tangible, as you say, all this stuff is.
I feel like you could literally, I mean, I think you kind of like broke this down in a really great way, right? By kind of like piecing it together. Let me listen to it and then be like, okay, what if you listen to it? What is, with this context or that context?
Right. Not trying to lead.
Right. And I think that like this is one of those things where there's probably a handful of different reasons for like the popping noise. And you could like tell me that and I'd be like, oh, I kind of hear that now. So I feel like you can really mold this in any like direction.
And I think that's what's at the core of this particular mystery. Yes, it starts from a place of deeply unsettling creepiness and a very strong footing in reality. I mean, like a home invasion, a ghost, anything of that nature, somebody being in your place of residence, I guess, are not outlandish. Maybe some believe a ghost would be outlandish, but either way, like there is a firm foot in reality here, which kind of exacerbates the curiosity when otherwise a more mundane answer just as likely probably got swept under the rug because of that. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
this mystery is very intriguing, but there are some theories left to discuss that I do want to get into because, like I said, as much as this theory feels strong, a lot of people who have done extensive analysis on this particular clip think otherwise. So we're going to talk about that. The next theory being sleep talking. Another very, very real thing that could solve this in a less creepy way. The woman, Jenny, immediately questioned whether or not this voice that she heard on the recording could have been coming from her or her son, but quickly ruled this out herself as a possibility because she cannot get her voice as low as the one in the recording. She doesn't think that her son could either, but just personal conjecture. When you're sleeping, sleepwalking, sleep talking, I used to do that a lot when I was a kid. Your mind is in a totally different place, and you can flex your vocal cords in a way that would feel unnatural when you're awake, especially when you're tired and groggy and you're talking very, very low, not notes wise, but volume wise. If you're talking very, very quietly, you can hit a surprisingly low note, but that's just my own experience.
Yeah, the same here. When I'm tired or just woke up, my voice is many octaves lower. Like, who's to say that you just didn't wake up with a certain amount of kind of gross, like
phlegm,
saliva, mucus in your throat, and it's just making you talk weird, just haven't cleared it out.
Either way, I mean, of course, you know, if she's not recognizing her own voice, I think that holds some water, because who knows her voice better than her? And to build on that, because that's what we're talking about here with this particular theory, to build on that, what's interesting is that Jenny was actually messaged privately outside of the realm of this open discourse on October 17th of 2014 by a Reddit user named Find Baron, who analyzes the voices in the audio clip in order to convince Jenny that the male voice she heard was definitely not coming from her. So I do want to raise a flag. If this person has a motive, they might be biasing themselves. They might be looking for the evidence that substantiates the outcome they're seeking, which in this case is to prove that it's not her voice, to convince her otherwise, right?
Yeah, I think, you're getting messaged by a random person.
They could just try to be scaring you or something. But
yeah, that's exactly where I would jump to. I'm like, this is just a random person that is trying to scare me, or is just trying to have some fun at my expense.
It would be some sick fun. I'm just going to say it like it is. That's sick.
Totally. That's what, that's what I was saying, like at her expense. Yeah. Which is just like, I don't know. It's a random person with a random message. Exactly. You can't put any weight on that. Obviously, absolutely you're still going to think about it. It's still going to terrify you a bit, but like you gotta, I don't know. You can't believe anything.
Oh, right. I mean, like, sure, this person could be an audio engineer who's completely well-meaning, or they're anonymous trolls, right? So let's dive into it. And it only gets sicker because I know what's coming. Like, she starts sharing more clips and more personal stuff. And so if this person was misleading her, I would be deeply disappointed. But let me quote their message to her. Quote, "The other person in the recording definitely isn't you talking to yourself, nor is it your son. Your voice's pitch in question, what you are doing," that line, "is around 265 hertz. And the answerer's voice seems to be around 95 hertz. That is a relatively low voice even for a man. Unfortunately, the recording seems to have clipped a lot of the lower frequencies, which makes it seem like the man's voice is around 190 hertz. But there's a little hint of the 90 hertz tone left, and judging by the upper frequencies and some test recordings of my own voice, I am a man, it definitely seems and sounds like a man to me. If I had a recording of you talking normally and then trying to make a really low voice, I could definitely tell you my theory is true." So again, even his own language is sparking the idea that he is trying to fit an outcome based on questionable variables, right?
That's
not really a good scientific method.
Right. Instead of just trying to be like, okay, look, I'm trying to figure it out.
Yes.
Whatever comes of it, comes of it. It's very much trying to fit like the story that they want.
Especially when saying like, I could definitely tell you my theory is true. I would have been like, if you're comfortable with it and you send me another recording, I can then assess whether or not I'm correct, you know?
Right. It doesn't seem like they're really trying to find out what's happening. It's more so that they already have their theory cemented in their head.
Yep.
And they're not only like trying to tell you, but like also like reconvince themselves in a way by the way they're talking.
Right. I feel like a regular goal one might have is to calm the person down and help substantiate the normalcy, i.e., this is your voice and I can help prove it, right? Not the other way around. But I digress. It's interesting that they started talking about the frequencies. It makes sense that the phone mic would cut off those lower frequencies because the diaphragm of a phone microphone is quite small, and so you can't really get that heavy bassness that one would have with a studio microphone. But either way, Jenny sent him clips of her and her son speaking in the lowest pitch that they could. It was also in the same room with the fan going in order to create the same sort of ambiance and sound profile. They sent that to him to compare the voices with the original recording. But because of these messages, Jenny shared that she felt 100% positive that the voice was not her or her son's. And she had this to say, quote, "This happened a long time ago. It was pretty traumatizing for me. I don't think I will ever know what the hell happened that night, but I am now 100% certain that the voice was not mine or my child's. Thank you for your concerns, everyone. Sorry this post has stayed with so many of you in the negative way. Because reminder, this is a year almost after the original posting. So the original posting was end of December 2013. This conversation with Find Baron is happening on October 17th, 2014, and then she leaves the house on April 2015. So this was very much at the front of her mind for about a year and a half, which is terrible.
Yeah, I mean, it would be. It'd be something that I would probably die questioning. You know, it'd be, on my deathbed and be like, what really happened?
Right. So I think, I have to give credit to the person experiencing this story and clearly isn't wanting it to be something sinister, but because I don't think she's got a motive for that. She's just trying to figure out what it was and be safe. So I do have to say that if she's saying with confidence that she doesn't think that this is her voice or her son's voice, that it does call into question the idea of the son opening the water bottle and then it being her entirely responding. I don't know. I hope you're enjoying this internet mystery. I'm so excited that we're finally diving back into some of our bread and butter mystery topics. The internet, as interesting as it is filled with mysteries, but so many of them are just light and tiny and small. So we discuss those often when I'm not busy on our TikTok page. If you ever want to listen to our micro mysteries over on TikTok, it is at The Red Web over there on TikTok. We've been a little inactive, I admit, but we are trying to rekindle that fire and get back to it. But otherwise, man, I'm so happy when we finally find an internet mystery that's worth dissecting in a bigger episode. So I hope you've been enjoying these. And also, thank you all for showing up and supporting us last week for episode 100. It was a bit of a mini special. It was something that I've been talking about Men in Black for like weeks and months and years. So I'm finally glad that we got to talk about it. If you can't tell, I'm a little frazzled because let me just say it. We're on the front page of Apple Podcasts right now. Literally at the time of recording this, we're on the front page. We're under new and noteworthy. It's been 2 years, but hey, we're still new. We're still noteworthy. And that is all thanks to you all showing up, putting up with our silliness and our mysteries and shouting us out and giving us those reviews and spreading us word of mouth, all of that. That's what that does. So Task Force, I just want to say thank you very much. It's so humbling to be on the front page of Apple, and it really does help the fact that, like, I don't know, we've been doing this for 2 years and we show up on the front page and it helps us grow. It helps support our careers, but it also helps us kind of ideate on the future of Red Web. Again, I know I've been teasing that for many months now, but realistically, we've been looking at what it means to do a live action version of this show, not to replace the podcast, but to give more looks into the mysteries of the world and to give more content that give you that creepy, eerie feeling that for some macabre reason we all enjoy so much. But anyway, again, I'm a little frazzled, but I don't know. I'm really, really grateful in this moment. So thank you all for supporting us in the many ways that you can, whether it be the merch, reviews, or just listening, or just sharing us word of mouth. It means a lot. And that's like, anytime we say it means a lot, it feels very ambiguous. That is exactly, going to the front page is exactly what happens. So anyway, with that said, I want to talk about some of today's fantastic sponsors. This episode of Red Web is brought to you by HelloFresh. With HelloFresh, you get farm-fresh, pre-proportioned ingredients and seasonal recipes delivered right to your doorstep. Skip those trips to the grocery store and count on HelloFresh to make home cooking easy, fun, and affordable. That's why it's America's #1 meal kit. Savor every last second of summer with HelloFresh, because HelloFresh delivers fresh, high-quality produce from the farm to your door in less than a week, and it allows you to enjoy those delicious flavors of the season right from your home. You also get full control because they tell you how to cook it, so you feel like you know what you're doing in the kitchen, even if you don't. But with regards to HelloFresh, I want to say that getting back into the fall season can be busy, but weeknights can be made much easier and much more foolproof with step-by-step recipes ready in around 30 minutes or less. I make HelloFresh recipes as often as they send them. I really do appreciate that they send us a couple so we can test what HelloFresh is all about. And recently they sent us these, let's see, we had like a Philly cheesesteak sandwich. We had these fantastic chicken recipes, but I'm just enamored with the pork bulgogi that they sent us. It was so good. I haven't had pork in a while, but it was so tasty, juicy, And we got to also add those recipes to our cookbook. So if ever in the future we want to come back to some of our favorites, it's so easy to do it. Honestly, HelloFresh has never missed. Anytime they send us stuff, and I'm kind of a picky eater, they've never missed. So if you're interested, please go to hellofresh.com/redweb16, REDWEB16, and use the code REDWEB16 for 16 free meals across 7 boxes, as well as 3 free gifts. Once again, that's 16 free meals across 7 boxes, as well as those 3 free gifts by going to hellofresh.com/redweb16 and then using code REDWEB16. HelloFresh, America's #1 meal kit. This episode of Red Web is also brought to you by ShipStation. Sometimes you can get by doing things the hard way without even realizing it. But when you run a business, doing things the hard way may mean you're holding yourself and your business back. ShipStation gives e-commerce sellers an easier way to manage shipping. So you can take all the energy that goes into managing those orders, choosing carriers, printing labels, etc., and use all that precious time to grow your business in the first place. ShipStation works with all of your storefronts like Amazon, eBay, Etsy, and many more, and lets you automate processes like fulfillment and tracking, so you can save time managing orders while keeping customers happy. ShipStation isn't magic, but it will make your shipping stress disappear, just like magic. So sign up using promo code REDWEB for a free 60-day trial. Okay, that's a lot of days. And you can get that by going to ShipStation.com and start breathing easier with every single shipment. That's 2 whole months of stress-free shipping, and it's free to try. Just go to ShipStation.com, click on the microphone at the top of the page, and then say, "What, task force?" That's right. Red Web. ShipStation. Make ship happen. You just got to give the appreciation for the nice pun, okay? Try them out. With that said, though, let's dive right back into the mystery. But with that said, let's talk about the next theory. Something a little bit more real and definitely much more sinister, that of a home invasion. So in a response post, Jenny shared that there were multiple mornings where she woke up and realized that the front door had been unlocked the entire night, despite her always locking it before going to bed. A Reddit user, Tipper the Clown, points out that some of the noises caught between the dialogue sound like someone rummaging through her belongings, looking for things to steal. This user went on to give very detailed descriptions of what they think went down that night. Supposedly, again, this is their theory, the intruder might have entered Jenny's room with a bag of some sort in order to hold any items that they wanted to steal. The sounds of them entering the room slightly woke Jenny up, just enough for her to hear what's going on and maybe respond, but not enough to be fully conscious and actually wake up. This is when we hear her ask, quote, "What are you doing?" Which Jenny shared was something that she actually asked her ex a lot when they would sleep together, which might explain why she didn't really care much about the response, which she wasn't more concerned perhaps by the activity in her room. She actually had this to say, quote, "I had an ex listen to it. He told me that in the past I had often asked the same question to him in the middle of the night when he would put his arm around me or try to scoot me over or something like that. It was a common night phrase, I would say, when I was woken up, but not all the way woken up. I feel like the way that I say, 'What are you doing?' is more out of annoyance than recognition, which makes sense if it was the clicking noise that woke me up." This was actually a response post that Jenny had made 8 years ago, but it does lend credence to what this person is saying. They have this question built into their habit, and so they might be inclined to wake up, ask it, and then not really care enough for the answer, and then settle back to sleep.
Huh.
They continue their little theory by saying that the intruder recognized that she wasn't fully awake, therefore responded with a very casual nothing, which she then maybe out of old habit accepted, and then just went back to sleep. And then they carried on doing whatever it is that they might have been doing.
The scary thing is that this is totally possible because I've experienced this.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Back when I had a couple of roommates in San Francisco, previous life, previous job, it was like a Saturday in the morning, probably like around maybe 9 to 11. I was just sleeping in, and then all of a sudden, like, door creaked open. Someone that I didn't recognize said hello, and then the door like closed again, and I went, me being like pretty sleepy, was just like, okay, let me go and see what's going on. And then I walked outside, and there was a man in the kitchen that I didn't recognize, like eating some of our food. And then I just went back to bed, and I went, oh, okay, I guess like one of my roommates has a friend over. And then I remember like waking up going, oh wait, no, hold on, like that's still weird. And then I went to the kitchen, and it was a homeless person, and they ran out the door.
Oh
yeah. And soon enough the cops came, because what they were doing was just hopping like yards and seeing if anyone had like a back door open. And they're just rummaging through kitchens and stuff. But
that's so creepy.
But it does happen.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I was asleep, and I totally just brushed it off.
You brushed it off. And so to complement your anecdote, right? So that's the perspective of how easy it is to brush it off in a sleepy state. I have the experience in my youth of having sleptwalk. It's usually towards the beginning of the night. And so if you have a late night and you go to bed at like 1, you might sleepwalk at 1:30. And so that would be where I would have a question for Jenny. When did you fall asleep, etc.? But I remember there was a time, and I'll gloss over, I'll be brief, where I basically got up, I started dressing for the day. I was essentially fully dressed, though I think things were backwards and weird. And I was bumping around in my room, and my mom was still awake, and she goes, what are you doing? And I kind of like just said, oh, I'm just trying it on. And then that's all. She went, okay. And then she left. And I woke up in the morning on the other side of my bed, which I never slept on, because it was, I don't know, I was a kid, and it was the dark side of the bed, and so it was towards the wall. I don't like to sleep towards a wall.
Mm-hmm.
But I was on the other side of the bed, halfway dressed, out of my sheets, and I had no recollection of any of it, of putting the clothes on, having the idea to dress, responding to my mom, like all of it was gone. And so, you know, what happens in your sleepy state is kind of spooky. You just don't have that memory.
Yeah, you're either, it's just like, it's such a wide net of things that can happen. You could either be like pretty like passive with myself, seeing a stranger like open the door, and then me just trying to justify that so I can go back to bed, or yourself where you're highly functional in the sense of like movement.
I mean, even my significant other now, there are times where she'll throw out a question or say something to me, and I know she's sleeping, but I'll just respond because it's adorable as hell. And then she might respond back, but then she'll never remember it. So it's exactly like this moment here. Anyway, let's get back to this person's kind of theory with the home invasion, because, you know, there's definitely something to go off of here, as creepy as it is. So this very same user that we were talking about went on to kind of talk about the clicking noises and how they paused right around the time that Jenny and the voice began conversing. And then once the conversation stopped, that's when the clicking noises seemed to continue again, almost as if there was a rummaging. Oh my gosh, she responded. Let me just give a soft whatever. Okay, she's asleep. I'm going back to whatever I was doing. So it's possible that this intruder was making the clicking sound with whatever it was that they were interacting with, picking up, taking, unfolding, whatever. And once startled by Jenny's question, immediately stopped, only to continue on later on. Tipper the Clown continues to say that if they had a briefcase, which makes a very similar sound when being shut or opened, those clicking latches, you know, it could be that, well...
But then they did it like 50 times.
Right. They were really fuddling with that briefcase. And also, I'm just going to go ahead and jump in and be like, now we're just trying to substantiate this, because I don't think someone's going to burgle you with some business paraphernalia.
Right. I think that's pushing it.
Unless they were
here
like,
to rob you, and here's my briefcase, so I can
right.
fit a bunch
Unless
of
they're
stuff
like,
in.
this will be my excuse. When they wake up, I'll say, I'm just the task force investigating a paranormal phenomenon. And I have a briefcase.
And then we go, no. We got to put out a public statement. We had nothing to do with said burglar.
Right. Please don't do that. And do not name drop us if you, oh man.
Oh my God.
I shouldn't have said task force. I should have said literally anything else. Either way, though, a briefcase does make those noises. And so if for whatever reason someone had a briefcase, I don't know. I'd be very curious, though, if she was missing anything when she woke up.
Well, I guess not, right? Because she seemed to be very like vocal about the experience and wanting to find out. And I'm sure that's a question that was asked, right? Because it's probably a heavy theory. So it was probably a question that was asked, and then they were just like, I don't know. I feel like there's an answer to that somewhere.
Yeah. Well, one last thing from Tipper the Clown. in trying to continue this theory, which they're doing a pretty decent job at substantiating, I should say. But with regards to the statement, that's them, Tipper the Clown points out that perhaps there might have been more than one intruder in the house. This person was in this room, there might have been others down the hall, and by saying that's them, he could be signaling to whoever else is there that these are the homeowners, or these are the people that are here, or these are the people I'm talking to. In some regard, just pointing out Jenny and her son. But Jenny eventually replied to Tipper the Clown's post saying this, quote, you are the first person to have mentioned the fact that the clicking actually stops, then resumes. I think that's actually more evidence towards home invader than anything else. What you said makes a lot of sense in the context of a home invasion. My only reservation would be this. The clicking or snapping sounds appear to happen very closely to my phone, like right beside my bedside. The voice is further away, you almost can't hear it. And so I think she gives this theory her own wrinkle by saying that, yes, while you address the noises, you didn't really address their proximity to the phone and how that would play out logically. So ultimately, she was uncertain if the clicking sound and the voices were coming from the same source or not. And then on top of that, to answer our own question with regard to the valuables, she did in fact share at this time that she had valuables such as her laptop, her iPad, etc. Those were all downstairs, so she couldn't imagine what they would want to steal out of her bedroom, why they were upstairs, if they were to burgle the place, why they would leave the expensive portable stuff downstairs. It's definitely a really big wrinkle in this one. But yeah, there are a lot of other nefarious deeds one could do invading a house. Bugging it, stealing tax documents. I don't know, but the list goes on and on.
Well, at least I don't think it'd be like bank account type stuff. Doesn't seem like valuables are taken. Doesn't seem like there was like, any fraud that happened afterwards. Mm-hmm. So
That's true.
I don't like... There's no kidneys missing, like
no one's waking up in a bathtub of ice. That's very true.
So it's just like, I don't know, like if they did invade, it was just out of being creepy, to be honest, or maybe they're in the middle of like, I don't know, like if they're stealing stuff, why do it right next to the person? Right. Especially when there's valuables downstairs. I think that is a big enough wrinkle for the home invasion. Again, right?
There's a lot of different motives. I don't really want to get into how sinister some of them can be, but there's a lot of different motives here. And I would also say, oddly enough, despite reaching out to her ex, it does sound that she has a healthy relationship with her ex because they're on friendly terms and speaking. But, who's to say he wasn't also coming around for some reason? If that's his kid, or if someone is in a sort of weird, twisted mindset,
True.
Right? I'm not trying to substantiate why. But I'm just saying it could happen.
They'll look after you every time you sleep in.
Yeah, well, that's the worst kind of Batman. I don't need any of that.
Batman, shouldn't you be fighting some crime? Nothing's going on here in this room.
Justice. I don't know. I heard that there was a cockroach infestation. I've got you covered.
Anyway, I want to leave the home invasion stuff because that creeps me out. But the next theory we're going to talk about is definitely a much less believed theory in this particular case, but because of the way that the audio was analyzed, and it raised some questions and eyebrows with regards to potential EVPs, electronic voice phenomenons, which we lightly talked about. A lot of the people listening to this clip heard things that you wouldn't have heard outright when they deeply analyzed it, and they look at the sound waves and they start to go, well, there's something else back in there when you listen to it. So perhaps, bearing the lead here, perhaps we have a ghost on our hands, and that is what was going down with the voices and the clicking. Now, this one might sound silly. I know we have some believers out there and we have some skeptics out there, but some of the information that came forward under this theory is actually quite interesting. So let's talk about it. Jenny shared that among the recordings that she shared with everybody, there were also a couple of other weird things that happened around her house that she wanted to share in corroboration with what went down that night. For example, she said that there were lights flickering in her living room. Her dog suddenly stopped sleeping in her bed with her, which would be normally up on the mattress with her, and instead now sleeps downstairs or at closest in the open doorway to the bedroom. Her son has a white noise machine that would tend to light up green even though she'd never turned it on. it was almost like it was turning itself on. And the weirdest story that she shared is that happened the same night, by the way, as the recording. Her 3-year-old son asked her, "Where's Ho?" And she goes, "Who's Ho? Like, who are you talking about?" And he goes, quote, "The black guy with no face." He had never mentioned anyone by the name of Ho before until this very night, just before the recording happened in their sleep. So Jenny brushed this off as him forgetting Santa's name or just being an imaginative preschooler. But I think we've seen enough scary movies now to know that kids are a little bit more open to the paranormal. I mean, yes, movies do this, but in reality, it happens as well. And kids tend to see things because of that innocence. Or ghosts just approach children because of their innocence. And so he's like, "I see a dark specter with no face on, and he's my good friend Ho."
Right. Kid's so innocent to be like, "Yeah, my friend."
Yeah, he's got no face and he looks terrifying, but you know.
No. That's wild. I didn't storytelling there. Didn't bring that into the last bit. I don't know, man. Having like 2 dogs now, they hear things, they sense things that you just didn't even know like was going on.
I mean, yeah, like cats do the same thing. They just have that really sensitive hearing. They could hear like electric malfunctions. So if you, hey, just by the way, task force, if you see your cat or your dog staring at the wall, might not be a ghost. You might have some sort of electric short in your wall. Please get it investigated so your place doesn't burn down.
Oh, I didn't think about that. That's
or cockroaches.
Like electrical humming. True. Yeah, that as well. But see, if that's the case, it's not one of those like you hear about in like the movies, or that's the only thing I can go off of, where it's like it latches the spirit, demon, whatever you want to call it, latches onto the host, moves with the host. They just straight up moved, and then it was like, okay.
Yeah, that's true. If they moved and the story discontinued, that's at least good to hear that maybe it wasn't a ghost. But the thought of the ghost did cross Jenny's mind at some point, which led her to ask her ex, when talking to him, to contact his friend at the Ohio Paranormal Society in order to figure out what the voice was saying in this recording. The friend didn't think that the voice said Jenny's name at all. The one that at the very end that said, "That's them," or "It's them." They did actually agree that is what it sounded like. It didn't sound like Jenny's name or anything more nefarious. It was just, "That's them," is what they took from it. And she claimed all of these weird instances had a reasonable explanation to her other than it being ghosts. So yeah, she did explore the idea of it being ghosts, but that's not really where she thought reality lie.
Kind of like landed, yeah. I mean, I guess like there just wasn't enough, right? Even if you had some lights flickering or whatnot, the fact that it seems like it only happened once. I mean, what else can you do? It can't, like, I don't know. It's hard to kind of like anchor on that.
I think what's interesting is that, especially, it depends on the dog's age, but if the dog is now sleeping in a completely different area, all the dogs that I have had a very kind of specific sleeping pattern. One would sleep in the same 3 or 4 spots, and it would always be a rotation through the night where she would start here and then by the end of the night move over there, but hitting up the same few spots. I've got others that don't care where they sleep, but they're always somewhere different. And then my first dog would always be in the very same spot. And so it is interesting, if not just a curiosity, to hear that a dog was like always on the bed and then suddenly was always downstairs or in the doorway to the bedroom. I wonder what made that shift.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, that's just such a big coincidence. Right? Yeah. Like, there's definitely like dogs or creatures of habit, and they will change up into a different habit. But man, I just wouldn't know what to do. I mean, I would try and lock the door in there, like lock the dog in there with me, just to see what happens to the dog.
Yeah, maybe the dog was like, "Yo, I can't handle that clicking anymore. That fan is old. We got to move on."
Yeah, maybe he just doesn't want to listen to the sounds or something. But like, I would definitely use the dog as like, well, see, that's the thing too. If it was an intruder,
oh man,
the dog.
Why we didn't introduce the dog? We held the dog for the ghost. But here's the thing too: is if there's some clicky clacks happening in the night, who's to say it isn't the dog on a hardwood floor downstairs?
Yeah. I mean,
But man,
Like-
does it sound like a water bottle.
It sounds like a water bottle.
It sounds so much
It
like
really
that.
sounds like a water bottle. But also, like, I don't know. I think the dogs would react, or the dog would react in some way, shape, or form.
Oh, definitely. Definitely. You're a strange person. I'm either going to attack you or more likely just be very, very excited that you're here.
Exactly.
I'm going to wake up the whole house.
Exactly. Yeah. I feel like there'd be a ruckus.
A little ruckus happening
Oh,
for
man,
sure.
so that makes you think it's just like a water bottle, and then her child was just messing around with the water bottle.
Yeah, just fumbling around with that, thin plastic. Man, I can't unhear that though. But let's talk about the last theory. As always, nice and simple one. Was this a hoax? Definitely a possibility that the story was floated as a hoax. For what means? ? Especially since this thing seemed to haunt her for the next year and a half until she could move. But who's to say? Maybe people are out there trying to get that Reddit karma. Their imaginary point system intrigues many.
Yeah, oddly enough, people like that Reddit karma.
Ultimately, Jenny could have been speaking to herself, her son, her ex, or another male that she orchestrated the recording with and posted the clip to garner attention, right? This is not a difficult thing to set up, a difficult recording to hoax. But the wrinkle, as always with this one, is that people have pointed out that if this was a hoax, it would be strange that Jenny would post her story in such a small subreddit, the Ghost subreddit, rather than taking her story to a bigger platform where she could harvest more of that luscious karma. But I did forget, when talking about the Ghost, that's the original place she went, to the Ghost subreddit, to try to debunk that element of it. And it just happened to catch a lot of attention. But yeah, I mean, like, why not go to one of the bigger mystery subreddits, if that was your goal?
Yeah, and then also just like garner all the attention and then just disappear.
That's true. She didn't disappear. She stayed on it.
Oh,
So-
yeah. Well, like stayed on it for until she moved,
yeah.
and then was just
Supposedly,
like,
right? You don't know.
Yeah, and then was like, all right, cool, bye.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think this was a hoax. If the most mundane is that this was just a misinterpretation of some, normal event. And if it was the water bottle event, I can totally see how this would be misconstrued because, again, there are some easy things to misinterpret. There are some very real situations that would create this situation. So your mind immediately races to that because you want to be worried, because you want to be protected, and you want to lock yourself down. Your mind doesn't immediately wander to, oh, I'm not going to change anything because it's probably nothing. If you think that someone's in your house or you think you're being haunted.
True. I mean, they also did not want to indulge in any other recordings.
Well, they did with that one person, right? They made some recordings and sent it, but to your point, they didn't want to listen to, or we don't know if they listened, right? They just said they didn't want to listen.
They said they didn't
to
want to listen. That's right. Huh.
So they did try to chase it down. They did try to debunk it, or at least prove some theories. But, hoax aside, I don't really subscribe to the hoax piece on this particular one. But, all the other theories considered, I think it still makes sense, regardless of how it went down, that she would want to dodge those recordings moving forward if she feels like she's no longer hitting that situation, right? If she feels like she's in a safe spot, yeah, don't unsettle yourself.
Right. Why dive into it, possibly hear something else, and then, I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
I would, just so that way I know I'm good, or at least have some peace of mind, but...
Yeah. I mean, I used to use a sleep tracking app, and, it would record your movement, it records sound and everything, and I can tell you, despite phones being super highly technical, their microphones are still crap. And they are rife with misinterpretation, those sleep apps and those recordings. You can hear all sorts of stuff, and they're just indistinguishable from normal language, even though it is, right? If I sleep talk, it's so hard to understand what I'm saying.
Right.
If a car goes by, dang, do I know it. It's just weird how it balances everything. So, I don't know. I get it. If she's already primed to hear something terrible and she doesn't want to revisit it, why listen?
Yeah. I feel like if that was happening to me, I'd sleep in my office, I'd turn up the gain on my mic, and then record with Audacity, like an audio recording program, and then just kind of go through the timeline, see if there's any spikes, and then listen to them.
That's actually really interesting.
I feel like that's what I would do.
That's the way to do it. A real proper microphone set up somewhere that can be kind of low profile, Or it just feels like, oh, that's just quiet tech. That's part of that desk. No, it's listening.
Man, yeah. If I was running into that, that's how I would do it.
Man. Well, that's been the sleep app recording mystery. It hits home. It's deeply unsettling. I'm always very curious when I wake up to listen to whatever it captured that night. I'm like, ooh, was I talking? Ooh, Did I fart too much? Like, that's what I want to know. I don't want to hear, hey, how you doing? I don't want to hear that.
No, hell no. That you lock everything down. You call the police.
Yep.
And then the recording.
Scrub my apartment, scrub my attic, scrub the neighbor's apartment. I don't care. Just like, let's get to the bottom of this.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Ugh, that's creepy.
Let's just hope Son was thirsty that night. Get a little water bottle action.
That's what I'm thinking.
That's what I'm hoping. It
sounds like a water bottle. And then there's history of kind of like sleep talking and everything. That's just kind of where like I'm going to settle my mind with this one.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, with that said, we are entering the month of August. And we're gonna try something different for the next couple months. At least August and later in October, we're gonna have a big theme to wrap the whole month around. So get excited for the forest month that is August. I'm super excited, Fredo, for the stories that Jillian's picked out and Gracie's picked out. There's some really fascinating forests out there with a lot of different stories. So that's what we're gonna be on. If you're interested in the ghost stories, paranormal, supernatural, cryptids, all happening in the forest, August is the month for you.
There we go.
And with that said, Fredo, I'll see you right back here next Monday for another mystery.
Creepy Mother Nature.